I think we actually went on an additional course after my baseline filler, derma filler course to give me an extra bit of confidence in complications. And that's really, really helped because, again, it sounds like a great career and it is really exciting, but it also has that, you need to be available on call 24 hours after and even longer just in case something goes wrong. So really deep diving into that, I think gave me much better confidence to be doing what I'm doing now. And
Hello and welcome to the Face It podcast. You will notice I am your brand new host. My name is Jessica and you can expect to hear a lot from me as we work our way around the UK's beauty and aesthetic industries. My background is dental. I was a nurse for several years, a qualified radiographer and in orthodontics, and now I'm a licensed permanent makeup artist. So before we begin today, I just want to remind you to please rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. A significant number of our listeners still are not yet subscribed on our platforms, and you guys have a massive impact on how much reach we have within this community. My goal now is to ask a few more probing questions, tackle some more tricky subjects, and provide a safe platform where conversations can be had and practitioners can be heard. So please leave us that review, comment your thoughts, and let us reach more people than ever before. Thank you. So without further ado, Heather of Foxie Aesthetics, welcome.
hi, thank you for having me.
No, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. I am going to jump straight into this conversation with you. Okay, so you've got 14 years experience in dentistry, which piqued my interest because given my background as well, as we've just mentioned. So if you could just let our listeners know what was your role in dentistry and why did you decide to move into facial aesthetics?
So a bit like yourself, I was a dental nurse when I left school. I worked in quite a few practices all around where I lived at the time, which was Mulgai and Bearsden. And I was really lucky to work with some of the what I would consider best dentists around at the time. So that really helped with, I would say, my confidence now in the line of work that I do. But it was really good experience, and I just felt like there wasn't much room to grow in that specific role. So apart from going on to do dental hygiene, this was kind of the next route for me. So I did my course, I think that was about 4 years ago now, 2020, for facial aesthetics, and I've just been loving it ever since, really. It's been such a good career move.
Yeah, I mean, I completely sympathise with that. I know exactly what you mean. I think that's one of the toughest things really as a dental nurse is knowing what route to take. And unless you want to be a hygienist or go to university and do a dental degree and become a dentist,
Exactly. And
there's
a lot
not
of
much
adults,
progression.
no, and a lot of adults, once you're used to an income, it's really difficult to go back to uni and give up your working hours if you're used to a lifestyle and things like that. So this was, for me, I feel like the perfect role, and definitely, helping people feel good about themselves. Already working with clients and the dentist, and you know how it is as well. Like, it's a really tough job. It's really quick, and if you are unlucky enough though to have a dentist that you don't really get along with, that can make your life very difficult as well. So, like I say, most of the dentists I work with were really good, but this was definitely like the next path, I would say.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and I think you bring in so many transferable skills, and it does kind of bring me on to my next question actually quite nicely. So, arguably dental professionals have a more granular knowledge of the facial anatomy as opposed to some of the other medical professionals, yet they tend to get disregarded and less favoured in the eyes of the medical profession. So is that your experience, and what are your thoughts on it? Because I definitely feel like we just don't get as much recognition.
I think when I was a dental nurse, I never really experienced anyone looking down on it as much. Maybe it's a bit different in England, or it might just be different practices that you've worked in. But a lot of people hold it as quite a highly skilled job here, and quite rightly so. So I don't know if it's just because I've had a lot of friends that still are to this day dental nurses and managing practices, but it's a tough job for what you get paid as well. Like, a lot of the girls are just doing such long hours, dealing with a lot of things that other people aren't dealing with in their day-to-day jobs, like bloodborne diseases and all this type of thing. So up here we get quite a good I would say, representation for dental nurses. So
Yeah, I
I've
think,
never really experienced
the
that, but
skill, yeah, the skill level that you need is, you have to learn more or less as much as your dentist or your hygienist. You still have
yes,
to have the same level of knowledge. It's just that you don't have the degree to match. You still need to
yeah,
have
that's
the
right.
same baseline knowledge.
I think, you seem to be in quite a similar position with your dental nursing, that it's a good gap. We're like the bridge for the gap between, say, like you're talking about the dentist with the degree and, your kind of beautician that's maybe doesn't have the DNA that we might have. So it's quite a unique position to be in the industry, because you're the bridge over the gap of those two, and it seems to be such a massive topic online at the minute. So we're kind of in that in between. I feel like, because you're not getting the recognition of being, a dentist or a doctor, which quite rightly so. They've been to uni, they've did all the years, but you're also not just coming off the street as a beautician, not off the street, but you know what I mean, just coming in the industry.
We land somewhere in the middle, and I think, with nurses, they kind of get that little bit more recognition. And I feel like, because you're a dental nurse, you don't quite get that nurses do, yet we have a lot of training within the facial field, with
So true. And
it's
it really helps you, because a lot of nurses that come to me for aesthetic treatments say they would love to get into it, but they don't have the confidence, which is ironic, because, like you're saying, in the industry, they are held in such high regard, which, again, they do a phenomenal job. But I think with being a
absolutely.
dental nurse, to bring it back to your question, we have to study so much more of the facial anatomy, which probably stands us in much better stead in the line of work that we're currently doing.
Yeah, and that's definitely the feedback that I kind of put in. I don't know if you had to do it in Scotland, but we've had to fill out those questionnaires and sort of give our perspective, on these new regulations that are coming in. That's definitely one of the things that I brought up, is that actually, it should count for something, a bit more than it really does at the moment, because the skills are so transferable, like you say, and the knowledge base that we have is very much at the level of, practitioners that are dentists, hygienists, therapists. We still have it all in there to pass our exams. We just don't, we don't have the degree.
Yes, or we're not. If you're not currently working in a dental practice, then that can sometimes go against you and things like that. So it's quite sad, but at the same time, I do understand and I do agree with there being higher regulations, because there's just so much kind of, I don't want to, like, attach a stigma to anything, but there's a lot of just like cowboy aesthetic practitioners out there that are only in it to, it's literally just a money maker. There's no patient care. There's no like knowledge of cross contamination and all the medical background that you can bring to it. A lot of people just don't have that, and it really shows sometimes. And I think there needs to be some sort of level of, govern it and see what's what, and make sure everyone's doing it to the same standard.
Yeah, I think, it's going to level out the playing field for everyone, and I think upskilling is only ever a good thing, right? So I think giving everyone the same opportunity now to upskill, and get themselves, more educated, it can only ever be a good thing. It's
Absolutely,
just how
yeah.
that's rolled out and what's going to happen
Yes.
with that, and
And I think it's
how
so
that's going to
interesting.
affect people.
Yes, and it's so interesting that you've got such a positive outlook on it, the same way that I would be happy to have anyone come in here and, check over, make sure we're doing everything correctly, because a lot of people see that as a negative. And like you're saying, it's good, because it's going to put everyone on the same playing field. And if you can't come up to scratch, then quite rightly so, you shouldn't be working in the industry, because I don't think people realise as well how serious a medical procedure it is, and obviously how badly it can go wrong. We've all seen the horror stories online, so it should be governed and like held in such high regard, because everything falls onto the practitioner. So if you don't do a good job, or if something goes wrong, like, you need to be, aware of all the contraindications, everything. And I feel like people just want quick lip filler and that's it. They don't really understand how serious it can be, which is great, because we've got the Faces app. I'm not just saying that, but
Yeah, we've got the
that helps so
complications
much.
consultant on there. People can use the
Yes,
complications consultant
yeah, it's
side
so
of
good.
it, which, I honestly believe everyone should take that up, because why would you not? You've got that extra level of protection there. And you never know when something's going to happen. And I think that teaches you, if you are a nurse, a general nurse, if you're a dental nurse, if you're, professional
Yeah, it
working
can
at,
happen to
degree
anyone,
level,
yeah.
dentist, doctor, you're all very much well aware that a complication can happen at any time. And, medical emergency can happen
Exactly.
at any moment. And sometimes it's the ones you least expect, it really can be the ones you least
Exactly, yes.
expect.
And I think we actually went on an additional course after my baseline filler, derma filler course, to give me an extra bit of confidence in complications. And that's really, really helped because, again, it sounds like a great career and it is really exciting, but it also has that, you need to be available on call 24 hours after and even longer just in case something goes wrong. So really deep diving into that, I think gave me much better confidence to be doing what I'm doing now. And I send with the Faces app, when my client fills out the form, it sends them a post aftercare with my personal number on it, all the do's and don'ts. And that's been so, so, so helpful. So everyone who leaves the clinic gets that. And that's thanks to the Faces consent app that obviously I use for my clients.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool. Like you say, it just automatically goes out. And that's the thing, you can hand them physical paper, and that's always good to give, but then they also get that backed up with an email. They can't, it's very easy just stick a piece of paper in your bag, isn't it, and just ignore the aftercare. So it's nice to have it in your email as well, and it's just twofold. You're attacking them from both sides of please read your aftercare.
Yes, and it's good. It's good as a practitioner because when they've left, you've gave them every chance and every opportunity to be able to contact you. And let's be honest, most people don't contact you. It's very rare for someone to contact you. But I think if I was going somewhere and having a treatment, I would prefer to know that I'm completely reassured and they're not going to just shut their doors and ignore me or not answer the phone, block me on Instagram, because I have heard stories like that. I'm sure we've all heard terrible stories like that. So you would hate to be in that category, and I think it sets you apart from the rest when you've got that digital aftercare as well. It's so handy, and I don't see anyone else really doing much of that, not up here anyway. So it's been really handy, really good.
Oh, good. That's great to know. Good to know. Moving on slightly then. So I wanted to discuss your own journey with filler, and the observed link that you've made between treatments and client insecurities, mental health. Did you want to just touch on that a little bit and just give a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I think, looking at it from a personal point of view, when I was younger, I don't know if it's just an age thing, but I was definitely more insecure, looking for a quick fix. So I was always getting, my lips filled or whatever it might have been, to the point where it 100% went too far. Looking back at old pictures, and it's almost like you don't realise it because you're getting it either so often, or it's just, like I say, a kind of mask that people tend to put on to try and fix how they're actually feeling. So when I had all my filler dissolved, that was about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was honestly the best thing that I ever did. It was like a complete game changer, and it made me appreciate how I look naturally and trying to work more with that. And I think it's really reassuring now for my clients because I've been through my own journey before even starting aesthetics. So I've been in their shoes. I've been the person who maybe can't see that they're taking it a wee bit too far, or trying to reassure girls about their natural beauty. And it's just really, really helped get to where I am now, I would say. What was your other part of the question? I can't remember.
No, that's, well, I mean, this is the thing, like, do you feel that there's a responsibility for practitioners to recognize when a client, is potentially going a bit too far, and, how do you handle those kinds of situations?
Yes, I think there 100% is a responsibility. And again, a kind of moral compass that should also kick in as well as your medical practice. It's just, think about the client's overall well-being and the long-term effects, and just assess where they're at, like not rushing appointments. That's like a massive thing that we do. We always leave enough time so that when your client comes in, you can have a chat with them. You can say, so, how have you been? What's new in your life? And sometimes clients will say to me, oh, I'm out with my partner and I'm just having a terrible time. And they're, then in my head, I can assess, well, are they getting something because they feel it's going to benefit them, or are they trying to get a quick fix to make them feel better from what's going on? So it's quite helpful to gauge where they're at. And I think, you know, I would hope that everyone does that. I'm not in other people's clinic day to day, but I do think we definitely have a responsibility to care. Just, you know, go above and beyond. Just ask those extra questions, because it really does help give you an idea about where their mental health is at.
I think your background comes into that massively, because you know, dental is so much more than just teeth. I always used to say this, like, it was, especially as a nurse, like, you are, you know, you are
You
their
hear everyone's
friend,
stories.
and yeah, and it's mental health. And, you know, I can't count the amount of times I've had people in an absolute state in the clinic, and, you know, and sobbing, and it's, so I think you just bring all of that with you and apply it in this industry now, and it's a fantastic
100%,
skill.
yeah. Yes, and often I find when girls are ready to dissolve their filler, you know, if you do have a difficult conversation and you say, okay, I know today you're booked in because you want to have your lips filled, but we could look at in the future, you know, not doing the filler today, but give them the mirror, show them, you know, this, your borders, you know, starting to migrate, you've got excess filler underneath from, you know, previous times, because you also don't want to point the finger and say, oh, that practitioner's bad, because migration can happen, you know, things do happen. Maybe they've went to someone who's training, you just never know the background. But I think giving the client the choice and allowing them the knowledge to understand their own anatomy and say, you know, you might feel a bit insecure in the beginning, but it's going to give you a fresh chance to start again. And a lot of my clients, when they dissolve their filler, you can tell they're on a journey to just becoming a better person, like a better version of themselves. And yeah, and they're kind of ready to let go of the past. I know that sounds maybe a bit silly, but I know that that's where I was at when, you know, I maybe went overboard with some of the filler. So it's interesting because you just get to see your client grow as a person, and then they're going to trust you because you've been honest with them and you've had that difficult conversation and said, you know, you don't want your lips to be the main feature of your face because you're naturally pretty. So it's not enhancing, it's actually taken away at that point. Yeah. So that's how I would kind of gauge the conversations if I did have a client like that. But I'm quite lucky that I don't have a lot of overfilled clients, which is,
I mean, I always say the same thing about brows. You know, obviously my line of work is more in the sort of brow realm. I do lip blush as well, but you know, I always say you don't want your brows to walk in the room before you do. You know, it so should true. Be that you're wearing your brows, not your brows are wearing you.
It's so true, yeah.
It needs to be in harmony with everything else. And I think, again, it takes you back to dental and cosmetic dentistry and, you know, just watching practitioners do what they do and really making them in harmony with the rest of the face. So, yeah, you bring in all of that skill and all of that knowledge, and that stuff can't be taught in, you know, a 1 day, 5 day course. That's through years and years of practice in various industries.
Yes, and being a dental nurse as well, it's you know, it's such a unique job because you're juggling so many things at the one time. So you're caring about the client, but you're also thinking about, you know, the procedure, what you're having to set up for, what the dentist needs. So if I tend to think if you can be a dental nurse, you're a very special person because it just takes every skill you've got, really. So it sounds like you've also brought that into your industry, which is phenomenal. I'll need to go look at your work, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I mean, I think the thing is, you know, once you love teeth, you forever love teeth. I don't know if that's just me, but, you know, I'm still obsessed with it now. Like, oh, I can talk teeth so forever. True. And it's one of those things, I think you are a nurse for life, really. I don't think it ever leaves you, even if you leave the industry.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, and probably your friends and family still to this day consult you.
Yeah, don't ever get me in a conversation about a toothbrush or floss or anything. I mean, I can go on and on for hours, honestly. It's embarrassing. You can see them falling asleep when I'm talking at them, you know. So in your experience, obviously, we've talked about that kind of procedure side of it, but how do you support clients who may go through that post-procedure anxiety or that depression? Do you think it's a thing? I know I do. And how do you guide them through it if you have someone that's maybe having that wobble after they've gone through treatment?
I could probably count on one hand about clients that have been anxious after having a treatment. One of them was actually my really good friend, so that's probably a good example to use. And she wanted a little bit of filler in her lips, And I would say the best way to kind of assure someone, because she was worried that our lips were going to be too big, that was our biggest concern. So of course, completely did full consultation to make sure we were nailing the brief to get exactly the result that she wanted. And even after saying your lips are going to swell, she was freaking out a little bit afterwards, saying, "Oh no, I think I've made a mistake." And to me, I was saying, if you do still feel like that, say in a week's time, worst comes to worst, you can remove the filler. It's not the end of the world. But she was absolutely fine with it. After a couple of days, the swelling had completely gone, and she absolutely loved them. And they were really natural, which was the exact result we wanted. But I would say in that case, it's best just to be honest with someone and say, it's not the end of the world if you don't like them as well. It's not permanent. And if you really felt that you wanted to reverse it, then that's something that we could do. And I think that sets people at ease, because they then feel, right, okay, actually that again, you're giving them back their autonomy, so they can choose, and they're not feeling stuck with it or neglected at any point after a treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it happens in all industries. I think you always just get that one patient or client that, they're so nervous that they, it doesn't matter how much you've gone over it beforehand, they're always going to have that little anxious wobble afterwards and think, oh my God, have I just made like the worst mistake? But it's how you handle that.
Absolutely. And in the consent form, we've made a point of asking people, tailoring the consent to ask if they've had body dysmorphia or problems with body dysmorphia, because yes, it's such a good key thing to point out, because if they've had trouble with that in the past, they're more likely to be so hard on themselves and scrutinise and become obsessed with one part of their body. So as a practitioner walking into it, you can choose to say, I don't think this is, a good path for you to go down. Or you can say, I know what to look out for, because we've identified that this could be a potential problem in the future. So again, it's, doing the consultation before you start really sets people at ease, because they know what to expect. They know they can get a hold of you, and you've spoke through their worries. Because a lot of people, when I sit them down, I say, what is it currently that you're not liking about your appearance, about your lips, whatever it might be that they're booked in for. And most people do say the same thing, I just want my lips to be a bit bigger. But it's good to, again, just give them the choice on how do you feel, what's your outcome that you're looking for, and trying to manage that. But most people, I think, they do just want to look a better version of themselves. So it's not
that common, like you say, but then you can get the odd one that really, it can knock your confidence as well as a practitioner sometimes, because you think, I've done everything, I've done everything I think I should do. I've done, I've spent time with them, and then still they have that moment. So it's just about, knowing that you're doing the right things. You've done everything as you should normally, and then you've just got to give them that little bit of extra care afterwards. They just need that reassurance. They need to know they can come and see you at any point. I think that's really important.
I bet for your brows, do people say to you, oh, they're too dark? And then they obviously go lighter.
Yeah, so again, in all of my consultation, it's all, this is the healing process. This is what you need to expect. They get a follow-up email afterwards. This is what they're going to look like. And you still might get the odd one that go, oh, they're too dark. And it's like, okay, well, we've discussed this at length, and, it will take time. So yeah, I think like you go back to what you said earlier on when you said that taking time with your consultations and making sure that you've got enough time. This is a classic example of why, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And also, it's just setting you up as a practitioner to feel much better about your work. You're not going to be rushed, because complications do happen as well. So you don't want to have, again, I've heard stories about people in the industry where they come in for an appointment and there's like 15 people sitting with numbing cream on. And I would feel, it's scary to think about, because they're maybe just being rushed in and out the door. They're not really getting that one-on-one time to properly connect with a practitioner as well, because that's quite important, that you trust the person and you feel the client's comfortable enough.
I think as well, they're more likely to come back, because at the end of the day, you want repeat clients. They're the most important part of your business a lot of times. Getting new clients is expensive. It's a difficult process. So really,
and it's that kind of like word of mouth.
And maintaining those relationships and really giving them a top-notch service. You know, even if things do go wrong, giving them a top-notch
Exactly.
service when that happens, and you know, being there for them and being available and
Absolutely.
being willing, is going to be, you
Yeah,
know,
and
keeps them coming back. Because I've had times where I've had things,
so
you know,
much
not
better.
go so
Yeah.
well, and I've still gone back to them because they've been fantastic in the process.
That's so true. And if anything, it's just going to strengthen the kind of relationship that you've built with your client, because they know, right, okay, she knows me inside out. She knows this is my worries.
Yeah.
So you're right in saying that they're far more likely to come back. And now we're at a really good stage in business that we have a lot of repeat clients. And you've got this business model where you've got your ideal client, and I feel like slowly but surely, what you put out onto social media and what you project is the type of clients that you're going to get. So it's worked really well, and I feel like we've built a really strong bond with a lot of our clients, which is so helpful in the industry.
Yeah, that's what you want to aim for, isn't it, as a business?
Yes, and as you know, the industry is so saturated at the minute, so return custom is key.
Yeah, it's a huge part of a successful business model for sure. So lastly, you're a Fraser's consent user. So I will just discuss what your favourite feature is. I know we've touched on a couple. Which one is your favourite of all of them? You know, if you could only pick one and would only continue to offer one service, which one would it be? And why is it so
What would
useful
it
in your
be?
business?
So having the Faces app, I've been using that since I began. So like I say, that was about 4 years ago. And I just love that you've got their details, you've got the consent, you've got, all your notes from your consultation, you've also got your photos. So, which is phenomenal, because you could be anywhere in the world, you could be, which quite often happens, that night, you can check back on their photos, their before, their after, if they come back for a review. All of that information is just in one client consent card. So for me, that's the best thing ever. Your batch number saved in there, which is great for your insurance. It's been such a game changer for me. I couldn't imagine, I don't know how people do aesthetics without having the Faces app, because the consent form is just so helpful. So that's one feature that I just couldn't go without, is the consent part, and the photographs, because we do it so that the photographs also get sent to the client, and they
Brilliant.
love that
Mm.
because it's so helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
brilliant. It's a good
they can
tool.
always
And
look
like you
back on
say,
it.
everything's all in one place, which I think, you know, a lot of times practitioners are using various platforms for each part of their business, you know, and it's all there, it's tidy, it's neat. You know, you haven't got to keep jumping
100%.
around various different places, especially if you've gone
And
digital.
it's so professional. Yes, 100%. Digital's the way forward, because I know people do written consent forms, but then where are the photographs going, if there's any photographs? And
Yeah.
you just think, if you have got returning clients, you want to be able to see where their journey started, where they're at now. And they also want that. When I think back to those times where I went too far with filler, it would have been so interesting to have those pictures in my email to look back on. So it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
reassures your client that they've always got that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So where can our community find you then? Like, where's the best place for them to find you?
So we are on Instagram at the Clinic Foxie.
And have you got a website?
We do, it's the-clinic.book.app. That's where you can find
Excellent.
all our prices, bookings, pictures, things like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for coming on and speaking to us today. Like, we really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and yeah, it's been wonderful to speak to you and get to know a bit more about you and just get your opinions on the industry and your background, and obviously learn a bit more about the clinic.
Exactly. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank you.